Luka Dončić has always respected Stephen Curry. He's said it 100 times, the greatest shooter ever, a legend, a champion. But after years of playoff battles, after years of being knocked out by the Warriors dynasty, after watching Curry celebrate while he walked off the court in defeat, something snapped. In a stunning, unfiltered interview, the Slovenian superstar didn't just question Curry's legacy, he dismantled it. The words were sharp, the accusations were personal, and the NBA world is still trying to recover. The date was May 14, 2026. The Los Angeles Lakers had just been eliminated from the playoffs for the third consecutive year by the Golden State Warriors. This time, it was a gentleman's sweep, 4-1 in the Western Conference semifinals. Stephen Curry had averaged 31.4 points, 6.2 rebounds, and 5.8 assists, hitting dagger after dagger. Luka Dončić, despite averaging a triple-double for the series, was left standing at mid-court as the Warriors celebrated. After the final buzzer, Luka walked off without shaking hands. It was a small act of defiance, but one that spoke volumes. The next day, he sat down for an interview with a Slovenian journalist, a rare, intimate conversation away from the American media circus. The questions were supposed to be about his future, about the Lakers' offseason, about his hamstring injury. But then the journalist asked about Curry. "You've now faced Stephen Curry in 3 playoff series. You've lost all 3. What makes him so hard to beat?" Luka didn't smile. He didn't offer the usual platitudes. "He's not hard to beat," Luka said, his voice flat. "His team is hard to beat. There's a difference." The journalist leaned in. "What do you mean?" "I mean, put Stephen Curry on the Charlotte Hornets, and he's not a champion. He's not even a playoff lock. He's a great shooter, the greatest shooter, but he's never had to carry a team the way I've had to carry. He's never had to do it alone." The words hung in the air. He had Kevin Durant for 2 of his championships. He had Klay Thompson, one of the greatest shooters ever, for all 4. He had Draymond Green, a Defensive Player of the Year, for all 4. He had a system built for him, the motion offense, the off-ball screens, the illegal picks that never get called. And he had Steve Kerr, a Hall of Fame coach designing everything around him. He paused. "I've never had any of that. I've had to create everything myself, every bucket, every assist, every win, and I still almost beat them. Twice." The journalist asked if he thought Curry was overrated. "I didn't say overrated," Luka said, carefully. "I said he's not who people think he is. People act like he's this unguardable superhero who changed the game single-handedly. He didn't. He changed the game because the league let him. The rules changed, the defense was handcuffed, and he had the perfect supporting cast." He continued, "Put me on those Warriors teams, and I'd have 4 rings too, maybe 5. Put Steph on my Mavericks teams, and he'd be fighting for the play-in every year. That's not hate, that's just reality." The interview ended shortly after, but the clips were already being shared. Within hours, the basketball world was in chaos. Warriors fans were outraged, Lakers fans were conflicted, and Stephen Curry was about to find out what Luka really thought of him. Luka's words spread like wildfire. Subscribe to see how Stephen Curry and the rest of the NBA responded to the Slovenian superstar's explosive claims. Within hours of Luka Dončić's interview airing, the basketball world was in chaos. Social media exploded. Sports networks played the clips on a loop. Former players weighed in. Current stars were asked for their reactions. The debate about Stephen Curry's legacy, already a hot topic, had reached a fever pitch. Kevin Durant, who played with Curry for 3 seasons, was asked about Luka's comments after a Suns practice. "I understand where Luka's coming from," Durant said carefully, "but he's wrong. Steph's gravity, the way he bends defenses just by existing, that's not a system, that's him, that's his skill. You can't teach that, you can't replicate that, and I know because I saw it every day." Draymond Green, never one to stay quiet, went on his podcast to defend his longtime teammate. "Luka is tripping," Green said. "He's frustrated, I get it. Losing sucks. But to say Steph isn't a winner? To say he's just a product of the system? That's crazy. Steph is the system. Without him, Within hours of Luka Dončić's interview airing, the basketball world was in chaos. Social media exploded. Sports networks played the clips on a loop. Former players weighed in. Current stars were asked for their reactions. The debate about Stephen Curry's legacy, already a hot topic, had reached a fever pitch. Kevin Durant, who played with Curry for 3 seasons, was asked about Luka's comments after a Suns practice. "I understand where Luka's coming from," Durant said carefully, "but he's wrong. Steph's gravity, the way he bends defenses just by existing, that's not a system, that's him, that's his skill. You can't teach that, you can't replicate that, and I know because I saw it every day." Draymond Green, never one to stay quiet, went on his podcast to defend his longtime teammate. "Luka is tripping," Green said. "He's frustrated, I get it. Losing sucks. But to say Steph isn't a winner? To say he's just a product of the system? That's crazy. Steph is the system. Without him, the system doesn't work. We saw that when he was hurt. We saw that when he sat. The Warriors without Steph are a lottery team. The Warriors with Steph are champions. That's not a coincidence." Charles Barkley offered a more measured take. "I understand both sides," Barkley said on TNT. "Luka's frustrated. He's been carrying teams his whole career. He's never had the supporting cast that Steph has had. But that doesn't mean Steph isn't great. Steph is great. He's a 4-time champion. He's a 2-time MVP. He's a Finals MVP. Those aren't accidents." Shaquille O'Neal agreed. "Steph changed the game," Shaq said. "You can't take that away from him. Luka's a phenomenal player. He's going to be one of the greatest ever too, but he's wrong about Steph. You don't win 4 championships by accident. You don't change the way basketball is played by accident. Steph is special." Stephen A. Smith was, as usual, somewhere in the middle. "Luka made some valid points," Smith said on ESPN. "Steph has had a lot of help, that's true, but to say he's not a winner, that's where Luka lost me. Steph is a winner. He's a 4-time champion. He's a 2-time MVP. He's a Finals MVP. Those aren't accidents." The fans, as always, were divided. "Luka's right," one user posted. "Put Steph on those Mavs teams and see what happens. He'd be struggling to make the play-in just like everyone else." "Luka is bitter," another countered. "He's tired of losing to Steph. That's all this is, sour grapes. They're both great. Why do we have to tear one down to build the other up?" The debate raged, and at the center of it all sat Stephen Curry, silent, waiting, preparing his response. The basketball world was divided. Subscribe to see how Stephen Curry answered Luka Dončić's challenge. Stephen Curry has never been one to engage in public feuds. He's always taken the high road, deflecting criticism with a smile and a joke. But when Luka Dončić, a player he respects, a player he's called incredible in the future of the league, questions his entire legacy, something shifts. The next day, after a Warriors practice, Curry sat down at the podium. The room was packed. Cameras were everywhere. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. What did the greatest shooter think of Luka's comments? Curry took a sip of water. He adjusted his microphone, and then he spoke. "I heard what Luka said," he began, his voice calm but firm. "And I understand where he's coming from. He's competitive. He's frustrated. He wants to win. I respect that." He paused. "But he's wrong about one thing. He said I've never had to carry a team. He said I've always had help. And that's true. I've had incredible teammates. Clay, Draymond, KD, Andre, Sean. The list goes on. I've never denied that. I've never pretended I did it alone." Curry leaned forward. "But here's what Luka doesn't understand. Being a leader isn't about scoring 40 every night. It's not about being the only option. It's about making everyone around you better. It's about sacrificing your own stats for the good of the team. It's about trusting your teammates to make plays when it matters most." He continued. "I've never averaged 30 points for a season. I've never averaged a triple-double, but I've won 4 championships, and I've won them because I made my teammates better, because I moved without the ball, because I set screens, because I trusted Clay to hit the big shot, because I trusted Draymond to make the right pass, because I trusted KD to take over when we needed him." Curry paused. That's not weakness, that's leadership. And if Luca doesn't understand that, then he's got a lot to learn. The room was silent. When asked about Luca's claim that Curry would be a play-in level player without his supporting cast, Curry smiled. Maybe he's right, maybe I would be, but I'm not. I'm here. I've had the teammates I've had, and I've won. That's not a hypothetical, that's reality. He added, I'm not going to argue with Luca. He's a great player. He's going to win championships, but he's not going to win them alone. Nobody does. And when he finally does win, he'll understand what I'm talking about. Curry's response was classy, defiant, and carefully worded. He didn't attack Luca. He didn't diminish his talent. He simply refused to be diminished. Curry had responded, but the debate was far from over. Subscribe to see how Luca answered and whether this war of words will define the next generation of NBA rivalries. The next morning, Luka Dončić woke up to a flooded phone. Texts from teammates, voicemails from his agent, social media notifications piling up by the second. Steph and Curry had responded, and the world was waiting to hear what Luka would say next. He didn't hide. He didn't retreat. He faced the cameras again. I heard what Steph said, Luka began, his voice calm, but his eyes revealing a competitive fire that had been building for years. I respect him. I respect his game, but I stand by what I said. The room went quiet. He talked about leadership. He talked about making his teammates better, and that's great. That's what great players do. But leadership is also about carrying the load when no one else can. Leadership is about putting the team on your back when everything is falling apart, and I've done that my whole career. I've never had a teammate like Klay Thompson. I've never had a teammate like Draymond Green. I've never had a coach like Steve Kerr. I've had to figure it out on my own. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. I'm not saying Steph hasn't earned his rings. He has. He's a champion. He's a legend. But I'm tired of people acting like he's the only reason the Warriors won. He wasn't. He was a huge part, but he had help, a lot of help. And I've never had that kind of help. That's not an excuse. That's just reality. Luka continued. Look, I'm not trying to take anything away from Steph. He's one of the greatest ever. But I'm also not going to pretend that he's something he's not. He's not a one-man army. He's never been a one-man army. And that's fine. That's not a criticism. That's just an observation. The interview ended, but the debate was far from over. Luka had doubled down. Subscribe to see how the rest of the league and the fans reacted to the escalating war of words between two of the NBA's biggest superstars. The war of words between Luka Dončić and Stephen Curry had become the dominant story of the NBA offseason. Sports networks dedicated hours of airtime to the debate. Former players lined up on both sides. Fans argued in comment sections, on Twitter, in barbershops, and at dinner tables. Kobe Bryant's former teammate, Pau Gasol, weighed in. I've played with Kobe. I've played against LeBron. I've watched Steph from afar, and here's what I know. Greatness comes in different forms, Gasol said. Steph's greatness is about elevating everyone around him. Luka's greatness is about doing everything himself. Neither is better, they're just different. Dirk Nowitzki, Luka's mentor and fellow Dallas Mavericks legend, defended his protege. I understand where Luka is coming from. He's been carrying teams his whole career. He's never had the supporting cast that Steph has had. That's not an opinion, that's a fact. And I think he's just frustrated. He wants to win. He wants to be in those conversations. And he will be. He's only 26. Steve Kerr, Steph Curry's coach, offered a characteristically thoughtful perspective. I've coached Steph for over a decade. I've seen him sacrifice his ego, his stats, his body for the good of the team. And that's why he's won. Luka will learn that too. He's an incredible talent, but talent alone doesn't win championships. Sacrifice does, trust does, teamwork does. The fans remain divided. Luka is right, one user posted. Steph has always had help. Luka has never had that. Put Luka on those Warriors teams and he'd have 4 rings too. maybe more. Luca is wrong, another countered. Steph's impact goes beyond stats. He changed the game. Luca hasn't changed anything. He's just a really good player. There's a difference. They're both right, a third added. Steph had help, Luca hasn't, but that doesn't make Steph less great. It just makes Luca's path harder, and that's not fair, but that's life. The debate showed no signs of ending, and at the center of it all sat Luka Dončić and Stephen Curry, two superstars, two different eras, two different definitions of greatness.
Months later, when the dust had settled and the new season was about to begin, Luka Dončić and Stephen Curry found themselves on the same side of the court, the NBA All-Star Game, Team LeBron versus Team Giannis. Luka and Steph were teammates for the night. As they walked onto the court together, Curry leaned over and whispered something in Luka's ear. "I respect you," he said. "I've always respected you. Don't ever let anyone tell you different." Luka nodded. "Same," he replied. "Same." They played together that night. They laughed, they joked, they threw alley-oops to each other, and for one night, the war of words was forgotten. But the debate didn't disappear, it just went underground. Because the question Luka raised about supporting casts, about help, about what it really means to be great is a question that will never have a single answer. Some will always believe that Stephen Curry is the greatest shooter and one of the greatest winners ever. Others will always believe that Luka Dončić is the most talented player of his generation, held back by circumstances beyond his control. Both are right, both are wrong, and that's okay. Because at the end of the day, the NBA is better when its best players challenge each other, when they push each other, when they make each other prove it. Luka Dončić went off on Stephen Curry. He questioned his legacy. He challenged his greatness. And Stephen Curry responded, not with anger, but with grace. The NBA world was shocked, but maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what the league needed. Was Luka right to call out Stephen Curry, or did he cross a line? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it. Subscribe for more stories that go beyond the headlines.